I want you to, close your eyes for a second and just picture a room.
Okay.
But not just any room. I want you to transport yourself
Ooh.
to a very specific Tuesday night. Specifically, Tuesday, May 12th, 2026.
Right.
You are standing inside the Pulaski County quorum court meeting in Arkansas. And I say standing because according to the reporting we're looking at today, there is absolutely no place to sit.
Oh, it's totally packed.
Yeah, it's standing room only. The kind of crowded where you can literally feel the body heat radiating off the person next to you.
That stifling municipal building heat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The air conditioner is just fighting this completely losing battle against the sheer number of humans in the space. The air is heavy, and the tension is, you can cut it with a knife.
Which is honestly so rare for a local county meeting.
Right. Usually these things are empty.
Yeah.
But you look around, and you see all these ordinary residents holding these crumpled pieces of paper.
Like their notes and talking points.
Yeah. The research, they've probably stayed up till 2 a.m. compiling. And then you look to the front of the room where the county officials are sitting behind their little microphones.
Looking out at this crowd that is just demanding answers.
And looking like they've already made up their minds,
Yeah.
honestly. But there is a very specific pinpoint moment documented in the reporting where the polite decorum completely just breaks down.
The breaking point.
Yes. A resident is up at the microphone. They are speaking passionately about their concerns regarding this massive new development proposed for their neighborhood.
Okay.
And right in the middle of a sentence, right as they are making their point, a justice of the peace leans into the microphone and just interrupts them.
Wow.
Just cuts them off. Just cuts them off mid-sentence. And the reaction from the crowd is instantaneous. We're talking audible, unignorable boos, just echoing off the linoleum floors.
That's when you know the civic theater is over.
Exactly. This standard administrative hearing suddenly just dissolves into a very real, very human standoff between the residents of a county and the officials who are supposed to represent them.
And before we get too deep into the weeds here, I think we need to establish exactly what we are doing today.
Yes, let's set the stage for the listener.
Right. We are undertaking a special investigative edition of the Deep Dive. We're calling it, conceptually, Pulaski County Pushback.
I like that.
Because we have this stack of highly detailed investigative articles exploring this specific meeting, right, and the broader context around it.
And our mission today is to really unpack all of this.
Exactly. We're going to impartially report on this material. We're going to look at the arguments from the community members, and, we'll look at the corporate side, too, the utility executives, the Chamber of Commerce.
Right, to see what they're actually saying.
Yeah, because we aren't here to, tell you who to vote for, but we are here to understand the mechanics of the situation. Because what you're witnessing in Pulaski County, it is not just an isolated local squabble.
Not at all.
It is a window into a massive, quiet land grab that is happening in backyards all over America right now.
Yeah, the billion-dollar AI infrastructure machine. It is rolling out across the country, and it requires just unprecedented amounts of land and water and power.
So much power.
Right. So today, we're going to unpack the friction that happens when that massive machine crashes into a local community.
And why this reporting out of Arkansas matters to you, the listener, regardless of where you actually live.
So let's jump in. Looking at the first set of articles, they detail this profound shift in how the public even views economic development in Pulaski County.
Yeah, the whole trust collapse.
Exactly. For decades, the playbook was simple, right? A company comes to town, the Chamber of Commerce announces jobs and opportunity, and everybody cheers.
Because historically, those were clean words. Growth, opportunity.
Right. But the public is waking up to the fact that these new AI data centers are not just technology projects.
No, not at all. They are massive land projects, massive water projects, and massive tax projects.
Which brings us to this really fascinating sequence of events in Pulaski County. So the residents were voicing so many concerns about the strain on local resources that the county officials actually backed down, kind of.
Wait, they did?
Well, they approved a year-long moratorium, a pause on new data centers.
Okay, on paper, that sounds like a win for the community, like a standard administrative response to public outcry.
You would think. But then the reporting drops this absolute hammer of a detail. They passed the moratorium, but they carved out a specific exemption for AVIO's massive planned project near Wrightsville.
Wait, so they paused everything except the exact project people were mad about?
Yes. The very project that triggered the outrage gets a free pass.
I mean, that is just...
It's insulting,
bleh.
right? Let me make sure I understand the logic, because it's like a bank manager realizing the main vault is completely exposed.
Okay, I like this analogy.
The whole town is yelling, "Secure the bank." So the manager says, "You know what? We hear you. We are going to initiate a total lockdown. We are installing a state-of-the-art security system. But only after we let this one specific, very large group of thieves just camp out inside the vault."
Yeah, it's basically saying the rules apply to everyone except the guy who already has his hands on the money.
How do officials even justify exempting the project that started the whole mess?
Well, the justification from the administrative side usually hinges on, like, the timeline of the development.
What do you mean?
They argue that this specific project was already too far along in the pipeline, that early agreements had been made.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and they'll say that changing the rules on a corporation midstream damages the county's reputation for being, quote, business-friendly.
Right, the classic business-friendly defense.
Exactly. But from the community's perspective, and the articles note this heavily, the residents correctly saw this not as protection for the county, but as protection for the deal itself.
Protecting the deal over the people.
Yeah. And that leads right into this concept discussed in the reporting, negotiating from aftermath.
Negotiating from aftermath. That is such a striking phrase.
It really is. It describes this structural dynamic where the most critical decisions about a project are completely locked in before the public is ever even brought into the loop.
So how does that actually work mechanically?
Well, a massive data center project doesn't just show up on a random Tuesday, right? It is discussed for months, sometimes years, quietly.
Behind closed doors.
Exactly. Land is scouted, often purchased through shell companies, so they don't drive up real estate prices.
Sneaky, but I guess it makes business sense.
Right. And they approach the local utilities to see if the grid can even handle the massive power load. And during this entire phase, elected officials and economic development board members are often signing NDAs.
Non-disclosure agreements.
Yes.
Okay, let's pause right there because we have to unpack that. How does a public servant, someone whose salary is paid by taxpayers, legally sign a document promising to keep secrets from the public?
It's wild, isn't it?
Doesn't that completely violate the basic premise of open government and freedom of information laws?
It's a great question. And it involves this very specific, very intentional legal loophole that economic development corporations use all the time.
Okay, break that down for me.
So in many jurisdictions, the entity negotiating these deals isn't technically the city council itself. It's an economic development corporation, or an EDC.
Oh, so it's like a separate group.
Right. They often operate as a quasi-private or nonprofit entity, even though they get public funding and are directed by public officials.
Wow. So it's a shell game.
Essentially. Because of this hybrid status, they can claim exemptions to the Freedom of Information Act.
Because they aren't technically the government in that moment.
Exactly. Their legal justification is always that they are protecting proprietary corporate information or trade secrets.
Well, wait, I have to play devil's advocate here just for a second.
Go for it.
From a corporate perspective, aren't NDAs absolutely necessary? Like if a massive Fortune 500 company announces they're looking at a 500-acre parcel in Arkansas, the price of that land is going to skyrocket overnight, right?
Oh, absolutely. It would go through the roof.
And competitors might swoop in. So they need discretion to put the pieces of a billion-dollar deal together.
That is exactly the argument the Chamber of Commerce makes. They say without NDAs, economic development in a competitive market is just impossible.
So they have a point.
They do, on the business side. But the structural problem, and this is what the community is so angry about, is what happens to the public's leverage.
Right. Where does the voter fit in?
I like to think of it through the lens of buying a car.
Okay.
Imagine going to a dealership, but before you are allowed to see the car or test drive it or even know the make and model,
Yeah.
the dealer runs your credit, legally commits you to a financing plan, and sells your current trade-in vehicle.
Oh, wow. That would be a nightmare.
Right, because by the time you actually get to sit at the desk and see the paperwork, you are no longer negotiating if you want the car.
You're just negotiating the aftermath.
Exactly. You're just trying to minimize the damage of a deal that's already done.
Right. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Once the utility companies have promised the power, and the zoning has been quietly adjusted by these EDCs.
The momentum is unstoppable.
Yeah, the momentum of a billion-dollar project is like a freight train. The public isn't deciding if they want the train to come through their town. They are just arguing about how loud the horn gets to be.
Precisely. And this friction over transparency brings us to this fascinating clash of philosophies detailed in the article.
Yes, the two different sides of the debate.
On one side, you have the Little Rock Regional Chamber of Commerce, and on the other, you have critics like Wendell Griffin, who is the Democratic nominee for Pulaski County judge.
Right. And he is pushing for some serious reform.
He is. He's proposing a strict regulatory framework for what he calls high-intensity digital infrastructure.
I love that phrasing. High-intensity digital infrastructure. He is deliberately not calling them tech offices.
No, he's categorizing them as industrial resource claims, because that's what they are.
Right. And here's where it gets really interesting for us. The reporting provides these extensive direct quotes from both the corporate side and the community reform side.
Yes, and we need to look really closely at this rhetoric.
Let's do a translation game. I'll read the exact quotes from the Chamber of Commerce, and let's break down what they're actually saying versus what they mean.
Sounds good. Let's look at the text. Do not hold back on these corporate quotes either.
I won't. Okay, the Little Rock Regional Chamber of Commerce is quoted as promoting these projects for their, quote, tax revenue, jobs, investment, and competitiveness.
Okay, standard buzzword.
Right. And furthermore, in response to the public outcry, they say they're offering, quote, informational efforts meant to answer community concerns so that the public has, quote, confidence.
Okay, stop right there.
Now, objectively, those sound like positive words. Why are the residents so angry about this language?
Because it's completely hollow. When a Chamber of Commerce talks about informational efforts in this context, they're usually referring to PR campaigns.
Like websites and glossy brochures.
Exactly. Websites that are launched after the public has discovered the project and started protesting.
So it's not transparency, it's damage control.
It is reactive PR meant to manage the peasants, basically. True confidence in a democracy comes from verifiable data provided before a decision is made, not a brochure handed out after the fact.
Okay, but what about the first part of their quote? The tax revenue, jobs, investment.
Right, the cornerstone of their argument.
Because, again, pushing back, isn't that a valid argument? A billion-dollar facility is going to generate massive property tax revenue for a county. That means better schools, roads, emergency services.
It would mean all of that if that billion-dollar valuation were actually fully taxed.
Wait, are you saying it's not?
Oh, absolutely not. The reporting and the broader economic analysis reveal this mechanism called a pilot agreement, P-I-L-O-T.
Okay, what does that stand for?
Payment in lieu of taxes.
Oh, that doesn't sound good for the public schools.
It's not. Very often, to attract these massive tech companies, local governments will agree to abate, basically forgive a huge percentage of the property taxes for 10, 20, even 30 years.
30 years.
Yeah. Instead of paying the standard tax rate, the company pays a much smaller negotiated flat fee.
Wow. So the investment number looks huge on a press release.
But the actual tax revenue flowing into the county is heavily, heavily restricted.
And meanwhile, the infrastructure costs, the wear and tear on the roads during construction, the massive upgrades to the power grid, those costs are still very real.
And they fall directly on the municipality, on the taxpayer.
Which is exactly what Wendell Griffin and the community advocates are targeting. Let's look at Griffin's quotes from the text.
Need a pen.
According to the reporting, Griffin wants these data centers treated as heavy impact developments requiring, quote, conditions and enforceable information.
Notice the shift in language there.
Right. He says the public's questions must become, quote, permit requirements, impact studies, public notices, enforceable standards, and penalties.
Yeah, that is a night and day difference from the Chamber of Commerce.
The Chamber uses words like confidence and informational efforts. Griffin uses words like enforceable standards and penalties.
Because the community isn't inherently anti-technology or anti-business, they are anti-secrecy.
Explain the mechanics of enforceable information. What does that actually look like in the real world?
Okay, so enforceable information means that if a corporate developer stands up at a town hall and says, oh, our cooling systems are highly efficient, we'll only use 1 million gallons of water a month.
Which sounds like a lot, but okay.
Right. The county doesn't just smile and take their word for it. They write a legally binding clause into the permit, stating that if the facility draws 1.1 million gallons,
Then what?
they face severe predetermined financial penalties, or their operating permit is immediately suspended.
Oh, I love that. It transforms a PR promise into a legal liability.
Exactly. The community is demanding public power over public relations. If you are going to consume extraordinary amounts of our electricity or water, prove it in public before the deal is locked in.
And that brings us to, honestly, one of the most contentious parts of this entire debate. the power grid.
The grid is everything.
You hear critics argue constantly that these data centers are going to raise utility bills for average residents.
Yes.
But mechanically, how does that happen? Because on the surface, if the corporation is buying all the electricity, shouldn't they be the ones paying for it?
It seems like it should work that way, but we have to look at the mechanics of utility rate socialization.
Socialization, like spreading the cost around.
Exactly. Let's say a massive AI data center wants to move into a county, and they need 300 megawatts of power. The local grid, as it stands, absolutely cannot support that.
Not even close.
So the utility company has to build a new high-voltage transmission line and a dedicated substation just to serve this one single facility.
And then that infrastructure costs tens of millions of dollars, right?
Easily. Now, you'd think the utility company pays for it up front and then charges the data center to recoup the cost.
Yeah, that would make sense.
But that's not what happens. This is where the public utility commissions come in. Utility companies will argue that upgrading the grid benefits everyone in the long run.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. They file a rate case with the state commission, asking for permission to socialize the cost of that new infrastructure across their entire customer base.
So everyone pays for it.
Yes. The commission approves a rate hike, and suddenly the average residential customer, the family down the street, the retiree on a fixed income, sees an increase in their monthly bill.
To subsidize the infrastructure for a billion-dollar tech company.
Exactly. And then on top of that, you have the issue of peak demand pricing.
Right, because the grid operates on supply and demand.
Yes, and AI data centers draw a massive, constant baseline of power. So when you add that huge baseline to a hot summer day when everyone in town turns on their AC,
The grid demand just hits these unprecedented peaks.
and to meet that peak, utilities have to fire up what are called peaker plants, usually older, more expensive natural gas or coal plants. Or they have to buy expensive emergency power from neighboring grids.
And those generation costs are passed down too.
You guessed it. So the tech giant reaps the profits of the AI computation, while the local residents bear the financial risk of upgrading and straining the grid.
That is just wild, which takes us from the financial impact directly to the physical environmental impact.
And the reporting provides a really chilling example of this.
It does. It shifts the geographic focus just slightly to a neighboring town, Conway, Arkansas.
Right, the Conway meeting.
The situation there involves a proposed billion-dollar AI data center near Lolly Road. And the detail that really stands out to me in the documents is that this facility is being proposed for an, quote, unnamed fortune company.
The corporate anonymity is just, it's such a flashpoint.
It's pure arrogance. Looking at the community's reaction, it's so easy to see why they are furious. You have a corporation proposing to fundamentally alter the landscape.
And drain massive amounts of water and power.
Exactly. And yet they use legal shields to keep their actual identity a secret from the very people whose town they're trying to build in.
It's like they're descending from the sky and expecting gratitude.
Right. The community feels like they're being asked to hand over their resources to a literal ghost.
It highlights this concept that researchers call the blank map mentality.
The blank map. Explain that.
When these large-scale developers look at a region from 1,000 miles away, they just look at zoning maps. They see empty space, they see available land and available megawatts.
They don't see the people.
They don't see the existing history or the infrastructure strain or the lived reality of the community. They just treat the location as a blank slate waiting for them to arrive.
But the reporting makes it abundantly clear that Conway is not a blank slate.
No, not at all.
There is this deeply impactful room-stopping moment during the Conway town meeting. A woman named Emily Lane, who is a professor at the University of Central Arkansas, steps up to the microphone.
Her testimony was incredible.
She didn't just ask hypothetical questions about the future. She brought hard data about the present reality of that specific neighborhood.
Yeah, the air quality data.
According to her testimony, the area around Lolly Road already ranks in the 98th percentile nationally for toxic air releases.
The 98th percentile. Just let that sink in.
Let's really drill down into what that means for a second. If a location is in the 98th percentile for toxic air releases,
it means that out of all the tracked regions in the United States, this specific area already bears a heavier burden of industrial pollution than 98% of the rest of the country.
that is staggering.
There is an existing significant baseline of industrial impact already happening there.
And this brings us to a core tenet of environmental justice, right? the concept of cumulative burden.
Yes, cumulative burden. It basically means you cannot evaluate the impact of a new project in a vacuum.
Right, because the corporate argument is always, oh, this data center is the best neighbor you're going to get. It's clean tech.
A developer will look at their specific data center and say, look, on its own, this facility is well within federal safety guidelines.
But cumulative burden says you have to add that new impact on top of what the community is already choking on.
Exactly. If a community's air quality is already deeply compromised, adding even a so-called compliant facility can push the local environment past a tipping point.
And this is where we need to explain why an AI data center is considered an industrial facility in the first place.
Because people don't see them that way.
Right. The tech industry has done a brilliant job of branding. When we think of a data center, we picture like a clean, sterile, quiet room filled with blinking blue lights.
It sounds weightless, like the cloud.
Yeah, the cloud. What is the actual physical reality that generates an environmental footprint for AI?
Well, the physical reality is driven entirely by thermodynamics.
Okay, science time.
To understand this, we have to look at why AI computation is so different from traditional computing. For a long time, data centers were basically just giant hard drives. They stored your emails, your photos, hosted your websites. That's just storage and retrieval.
Which doesn't take that much effort.
Right. But artificial intelligence, particularly training these large language models, is not storage. It is active, continuous, brutal computation.
Explain the hardware difference.
So traditional data centers rely heavily on CPU's central processing units, but AI relies on GPU's graphics processing units.
They're much more powerful.
Infinitely more powerful. They perform thousands of calculations simultaneously. When you are training an AI model with trillions of parameters, you are running thousands of these highly powerful GPUs at absolute maximum capacity.
Just redlining them.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week for months on end.
And anyone who has ever had a laptop heat up on their legs knows that running a processor at maximum capacity
creates an unbelievable amount of heat.
Right.
If you don't cool those servers down, the silicon will literally melt. So you have to cool them. And how do you cool a warehouse packed with tens of thousands of GPUs running at the temperature of a pizza oven?
You definitely can't just use standard air conditioning.
No, standard HVAC would use way too much power. It's totally inefficient. So they often use evaporative cooling systems.
Which use water.
Millions of gallons of water. They draw it from local municipal supplies or underground aquifers. It absorbs the heat and evaporates through massive cooling towers.
So that's the massive water footprint the community was worried about.
Yes. But the air quality concern, particularly for Conway, being in the 98th percentile for toxic air, comes from the backup power.
The diesel generators.
Exactly. AI computation is incredibly sensitive to power fluctuations. The industry standard for these facilities is called 5 nines of uptime.
5/9.
It means the servers must be running 99.999% of the time. If the power grid blips for even a fraction of a second, an entire training cycle could be corrupted.
And that cost millions of dollars in lost computational time.
Millions. And because the public electrical grid is inherently fragile, I mean, trees fall on power lines, heat waves overload substations.
Storms happen.
Right. To guarantee those 5 nines of uptime, these facilities cannot rely solely on the public grid. They install massive banks of industrial diesel generators right on site.
And we are not talking about the kind of generator you buy at the hardware store.
No. We're talking about dozens of massive engines, roughly the size of train locomotives, just sitting outside the building.
And they don't just sit there silently waiting for an emergency, do they?
That's the kicker. Under federal air quality regulations, specifically Title V permits, these facilities are allowed to run these diesel generators for a certain number of hours every single month.
Just for routine testing.
Just for testing and maintenance to make sure they'll fire up if the grid goes down.
And what comes out of the smokestacks of dozens of locomotive-sized diesel generators?
Diesel exhaust, which contains particulate matter, specifically PM2.5.
And those are the microscopic particles.
Right. Small enough to bypass the body's natural defense mechanisms and lodge deep in your lungs, or even enter your bloodstream.
And the health impacts of that are severe.
Environmental health studies consistently link prolonged exposure to PM2.5 with respiratory issues, cardiovascular problems, asthma.
So bringing this all back to Emily Lane's testimony at the Conway meeting.
Yeah.
You have a community that the data shows is already in the 98th percentile for toxic air releases. And the corporate developers, hiding behind their anonymous LLCs, are looking at this location and proposing to build a facility that will strain the electrical grid.
Require millions of gallons of water.
Right, and place dozens of industrial diesel generators in the neighborhood, periodically pumping diesel exhaust into air that is already heavily burdened.
Which is why this is fundamentally framed by the critics as an issue of environmental justice.
Absolutely. The core question being asked in these meetings is, who absorbs the physical consequences of the digital economy?
The reporting points out this incredibly stark contrast. The executives designing these AI architectures, who are reaping billions of dollars in profit, generally live in environments where they do not have to hear the low-frequency hum of cooling towers.
Or breathe the particulate matter.
Exactly. They operate in the digital realm, but the physical footprint of that digital realm has to exist somewhere.
And historically, as the article suggests, that physical footprint is placed in communities that developers view as having less political leverage to fight back.
Rural communities, working-class towns, places already burdened by industry. It's a dynamic that really echoes the old resource extraction models of the 19th and 20th centuries.
Like the coal and timber towns.
Right. A powerful entity comes in, extracts the cheap power, uses the local water, benefits from huge tax subsidies, and leaves the local community to manage the resulting infrastructure strain and environmental fallout.
The product isn't coal anymore, it's artificial intelligence. But the physical impact on the local geography is exactly the same.
Strikingly similar, yes.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Why have we spent this entire deep dive dissecting the political and technical dynamics of one quorum court meeting in Pulaski County?
Because, as the reporting makes incredibly clear, the friction you are seeing in that Arkansas meeting room is part of a massive, undeniable national movement.
Yes, the statistics provided in our sources give us a really profound sense of the scale here. The pushback in Arkansas is not some isolated anomaly.
It is happening everywhere.
According to the data, grassroots efforts led by local residents, professors, reform candidates have already successfully blocked $18 billion in data center projects across 24 states.
$18 billion. That is an astonishing figure.
It really is. It means that in 24 different states, local communities have looked at the proposals, looked at the NDAs, looked at the strain on their local grids, and managed to organize enough political pressure to just stop the development machine in its tracks.
It represents a fundamental shift in the balance of power at the local level.
Right.
For a long time, that model of negotiating from aftermath worked perfectly for corporate developers.
Because the public was just generally unaware of how these deals were structured.
Exactly. They trusted the rhetoric that all economic development was inherently positive. But the reporting shows that communities are finally learning to read the fine print.
They're understanding utility socialization. They're understanding the physical footprint of the cloud.
They are demanding the enforceable information that Wendell Griffin was talking about.
Exactly. When a corporation approaches a town now and says, oh, we will bring innovation,
the town is responding with, show us the Title V air permits for your backup generators.
show us the water draw studies, put it all in a legally binding contract.
And when the corporations refuse to provide that level of transparency, the citizens are successfully leveraging their local democratic institutions to shut the projects down.
It really reframes the importance of local government. It is so easy to just focus on national politics and ignore what happens at the county or municipal level.
But the decisions that dictate the physical reality of where you live, your air quality, your electricity bill, your water supply, those decisions are being made on Tuesday nights in those stifling municipal buildings.
The people who packed the room in Pulaski County on May 12th were exercising democratic leverage at its most elemental level. They were refusing to be treated as a blank map on a developer's spreadsheet. Showing up matters.
It really does.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We hear this phrase constantly in the tech world. Data is the new oil.
It's a very catchy metaphor for the 21st century economy.
It is. But if we follow that logic, if data is the new oil, then these massive AI data centers are the new industrial refineries.
Oh, absolutely. They are the resource-hungry plants required to process that crude material into a usable product.
Think about how you would react if a corporation quietly proposed building a massive chemical oil refinery in your neighborhood.
You would be furious. You would demand health guarantees.
You would demand to know exactly what was coming out of those smokestacks before a single piece of heavy machinery arrived.
Right.
So look around your own community. Pay attention to the zoning boards and the utility commission hearings. Who is checking the digital pipes in your town? And what exactly are the developers hoping you're too busy or too trusting to notice?
The reporting out of Arkansas shows us exactly what happens when a community decides to stop trusting the rhetoric and start demanding the data.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.